I am not going to begin with a rant.
What?
Mm-mm. I am going to jump straight into today's topic.
Oh, I thought you were just gonna start bitching about something.
Nope, no rant. No, no. Well, I'm not going to start with a rant.
Oh,
Uh, but no, today I'm going over just random various statistics and studies that I found for this episode because I like data, I like numbers. So
all right.
there's some stuff I was just kind of curious about, and I start Googling. Next thing you know, I have enough different studies and weird things to make an episode out of. So I was like,
All right.
okay, we're going to start this off with a few studies that tried to analyze a very common assumption about our nearest space neighbor, the moon.
Okay. What's that common assumption? Let's hear it.
Well, you've heard it. Oh, I thought about a song and it played on the radio. Oh, must be a full moon tonight.
Mm.
Oh, a stranger came up to me and said my hair looks like it tastes good. There must be a full moon tonight. My dad said he was proud of me. Must be a full moon tonight. Well, people have made associations to weird human behavior and the full moon forever. It's just like, oh, werewolves and scary things, blah, 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 blah. Well, in 2009, there was a study in Germany that looked at 23,000 cases of aggravated assault from 1999 to 2005, and it found no correlation with any of the lunar phases. Another study was published in 2016 that pulled data across 1,737 cities in the eastern United States in 2014. So over 1,500 cities, east side of the United States in 2014. Well, the study broke things down by indoor crime and outdoor crime that happened between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. So this made sure that they weren't like having daylight kind of mess with any of it. And
Okay.
then actual, like having the moon visible during the crime. They found that the lunar cycle did not impact indoor crime. So
Okay.
indoor craziness was pretty consistent regardless of what the moon was doing.
Always crazy.
Yeah, it was at a pretty steady pace. They did find that as the light from the moon increased, so did instances of outdoor crime.
You can see.
Essentially, as people have more natural light at night, like the moon getting fuller, there was an increase in outdoor crime. As it decreased, the amount of outdoor crime decreased. Now, for those of you that feel like the moon is making people, animals, or electronics weird, I'm sorry. It doesn't appear that full moons make anything happen, but it is used by bad people whenever they want to play outside. All right. Well, we might be disappointed that full moons don't make people into monsters or weirdos. So let's look at some statistics regarding actual human monsters. There's a study that counted the number of serial killers in each state from 1979 to the year 2000. Serial killers, in this instance, are defined as murderers with 3 or more victims that have a cooling off period between crimes. This prevents the data from being influenced by like mass murderers and spree killers. Now, the top 3 states that lined up for the most serial killers were the most populous states: New York, California, and Texas.
Yeah.
We had the most serial killers during that time period.
Texas did?
We didn't have the most, but we were in the top 3.
It's all right. We still on the podium.
Yeah!
We celebrate everything. Texas pride.
Woo! Now, oddly enough, the most populated state, California, was in second place with 15 serial killers. New York beat them out with 18. And then, of course, we were a distant third with 8.
Come on, guys.
Yeah, we were behind. Now, another study that I found measured the number of victims of serial killings compared to the population of each state. Now, it's supposed to express the impact of serial killers on the total population. But I kind of look at it more like gambling odds.
Okay.
The data pool of this study was from 1992 to 2019. So
Okay.
this one, we're looking at 27 years. And it has a looser definition of serial killers than the previous study. These serial killers only needed 2 victims and still required a cooling off period between the 2 victims. Furthermore, the motive or suspected motive had to be abnormal psychological gratification, thrill seeking, attention, or financial gain.
Okay.
They did this so that it would remove things like gang violence. Otherwise, California and New York would just wipe everybody out again.
Yeah.
Well, this one found California in the top spot yet again, with the total serial killer victims at 1,777. Texas was in a distant second with 984 victims. So almost half, because we can defend ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, like before, we're talking about the states with the highest populations. You're going to expect higher numbers. And by the time in the time period of this study, we'd already beaten New York in population by then. Now, but the reason we're looking at this study is to look at the number of victims compared to population. Washington, D.C. had the highest rate of serial killer victims with 25 victims per 100,000 residents.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's not something you want to put on your Zillow page.
But this one makes sense because the vast majority of the people that work in D.C. do not live in D.C. So you have loads of people in that area, but not as many living there. So you got it kind of beefs up the numbers. It mucks everything up. I mean, just because you got killed there doesn't mean you live there.
True. You got a lot of people coming in and out.
Exactly.
Thousands and thousands of people. Okay. I can see that.
Yeah. Now, also, the government is evil and is probably the culprit,
Of both these
the
murders?
study doesn't want to say. Yeah. They're just kind of like, oh, no, we must have a crazy psycho thing. It's like, come on, the government's the serial killer. Admit it. And the study's like, no, I promise. And they're like looking over their shoulder. They get their grant from the government. And they're like, oh, no, the government's wonderful.
All right.
And it was the distant second place with 7 victims per 100,000 residents. And it was Alaska.
Okay. That's pretty desolate and not very populous.
Yeah, I can't say that I'm too surprised, because if I was going to be a psycho killer, I would think, I would go to the last frontier. It makes sense. You go to the closest thing that we have to a wild, wild west.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, either way, if you're worried about being killed by a serial killer, you're statistically more likely to encounter one in DC, Alaska, or Louisiana. Now, I don't want to end this section on a negative, so I found another study that did a similar thing to the last one, except the years covered were 1900 to 2014. So we're talking 114 years. Sought this study out because I wanted to see the bottom of this list. Now, third to last is South Dakota, where it is 0.74 victims per 100,000 residents.
Damn.
Yeah, so
a full person.
Yeah, not even it's like they found 3/4 of a person and he was still alive. Like, oh God, let's keep going. Breathe, damn you, breathe. Second from last is New Hampshire, with 0.68 victims per 100,000 people. Now, I'm going to say we shouldn't even count this one because New Hampshire isn't real.
No.
We know it's not real. The state where you are statistically least likely to be murdered by a serial killer.
So if can I have some guesses?
If you're going to place a bet on where you're least likely to be killed, what do you think it is?
Okay, let me have some. Okay. Well, I'm going to go with Hawaii.
You nailed it. You win. Ding, 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 ding. In Hawaii, it is 0.59 victims per 100,000 residents. So
what's to be mad about there?
Yeah. So if you need a reason to deal with Hawaii's high cost of living and amazing weather, then being less likely to be murdered by a serial killer should put you right over the edge. So yeah, I mean, and I agree because like I got drunk, passed out on a beach in Hawaii, and I'm still alive.
And nobody robbed you.
I didn't get robbed or violated
And you had a
that
drink
night.
refill when you woke up.
Now, next, one thing I've heard periodically throughout the years is that dentists have the highest likely of eliminating themselves, you know,
Uh-huh.
boom, among, other professions as compared to other professions. They're like, oh, yeah, no, dentist. Because I recently, whenever I got this thing fixed, my dentist brought it up to me. Like she sat there and says that, like, oh, that dentists are the most likely to do that. And I'm like, yeah, I've heard that. I hope it wasn't a cry for help because I didn't like follow up, be like, hey, are you okay? But whatever.
Like,
She seemed fine.
we,
She seemed cheerful.
yeah, well, those commercials you see with Colgate, they say 9 out of 10 dentists prefer our toothpaste.
Mm-hmm.
We now know what happened to that 10th dentist.
I can tell you now that statistically speaking, that is not true at all about dentists. They're not more likely to harm themselves. The statistic that people are quoting whenever they say that about dentists is from a report that was published in the 1960s. In a more recent report published in 2016 for the CDC, remember those wonderful people from a few years back? Anyways, according to them, the construction and mining industry has the highest rate of people saying goodbye, cruel world for men. Women, it's art, design, entertainment, sports, and media jobs with 15.6 per 100,000 people. Yeah. Now, I don't know if you caught on to this, but since men tend to off themselves, are 3 times more likely to off themselves, then it makes construction and mining industry the most likely to harm themselves among people in general. Because the men are like 15.6. Those are we can do better than that, boys. Come on.
Yeah, hold my nail gun.
Yeah.
Actually, let me hold
Let
that nail
me.
gun. Yeah. Actually, give it back. Yeah.
Yeah, I need that. Another thing that I found that was kind of shocking is that the food preparation industry has seen nearly a 50% increase in answering the call of the void since from 2012 to 2015. Let's go back to joking about, like people hurting themselves. Now, transversely from the food preparation industry, healthcare practitioners, where dentists would be counted, has seen a 2.1% decrease in those years from 2012 2015. So they're not at the top of the list, and as a matter of fact, the number of them hurting themselves is going down. Now, we all had a good laugh. None of those are good statistics, regardless of industry. If you're thinking about hurting yourself, don't. Call someone, family or stranger. Someone will be there for you. Message us on one of our videos. We'll talk to you. I mean, obviously, we're really good at it, so we'll make you laugh. I'm assuming that you know what the 27 Club is.
The 27 Club.
Wow, Jason.
No.
Oh, God. I hate you right now. All right. For those of you who avoid any kind of pop culture mythology or you're retarded like my friend here, oh, wait. I'm not allowed to say that anymore. I don't care. There is a group of musicians that died at the age of 27, such as
Okay.
Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse, and Jim Morrison. Okay.
I've heard of those guys.
Now, most of the time they died, in the 27 Club because of drugs or alcohol, self-deletion, or car accidents. Well, I found a chart that has over 12,000 musicians listed listed in it, and it took the list from the Freebase musical artist collection. And according to, and it took all these musicians that have passed on, and it charted them on how they died and what and how they were when they died. According to the data pulled from that list, 47 musicians out of the 12,000 on that list died at the age of 27.
Wow.
The chart shows that just like, normal, not famous people, as musicians age, the number of people dying increased. So there's not an odd spike at 27 whenever you look at the line chart. It just kind of fits the trend of, like as they get older, the number of dead people just goes up and up and up and up. When you look at all 12,000, the bulk of them that, like whenever you do see the big spike and whenever it hits its peak, 74 years old. I narrowed down the causes to drug and alcohol, car wrecks, murder, and leaving this mortal coil by their own choice.
4 categories.
All right. Drug overdoses at 27 is tied for second with 33, 36, and 42 years old. First place went to 29 and 39. I guess once a musician gets on the edge of turning 30 or 40, like, oh, God.
I did take it.
No. Traffic collisions at 27 is tied for second again, this time with 39 and 41 years old. And this one, 24 years old, took the top spot by itself. They're like, woohoo, I'm a musician, I'm top of the world. And they're under a truck. Murder, once again, put 27 in second place, being beaten out by 37-year-olds. For taking themselves out, 27 is in, take a guess.
Second place.
Second place. This time tied with 31 years old. And whenever it's like, taking care of themselves, they were beaten out by 55-year-olds. They're like, God damn it, I'm not going to turn 60.
I do not want to ride a 6.
Now what I did notice is like 27 never took the top spot on any unnatural method. But whenever you add up all their second place totals, it beats the other ages.
Oh.
So whenever you mush it all together,
score, yeah.
then you do get a spike at that point. Now, I will say the data I was doing was lacking because it also didn't separate plane crash. And planes seem to hate musicians.
Very true.
Yeah, I would like to have seen how that impacted the numbers. How many of them went at 27 due to plane crashes. But yeah, it didn't have that in there for some reason. So data was like, meh.
You said impacted in plane crashes.
And you want me to plug?
No, you said how the numbers impacted by the plane crashes.
I get it. Okay. All right. Well, let's step away from the famous people and take a huge step back so we can look at everyone. We want to get everybody in our sights now. Now, since the beginning of human beings existing, there have been anywhere between 105 and 117 billion people that have ever lived.
Wow.
117 billion, that's a lot, right?
That was a lot.
Yeah, but is it though? At this exact moment, right now, this very second, it is estimated that there are 20 quadrillion ants alive right now.
Wow, they could take over.
Now, here's another fun one. If you converted the history of the Earth into one calendar year, so 12 months, then human civilization would begin 5 minutes before midnight on December 31st.
Okay, say that again.
If you converted the entire history of the Earth, so since the Earth, Earth was formed, since our planet was actually formed, if you change that entire history into a 12-month calendar, January to December. Human civilization would begin 5 minutes before midnight on December 31st.
Okay, so we're just another of the
It's just
existence.
one of
We
those.
wouldn't last very long. We're like a fruit fly.
Yeah, it's just one of those interesting things. It's just like, oh yeah, we're tiny and insignificant.
Okay.
We've been around this long. I mean, I'm impressed that it was 5 minutes. So,
I usually only last 2.
oh dear God, I'm sure everyone is aware of how deadly it can be climbing Mount Everest. There are pictures of like dead bodies that litter the trails as you get to the top.
Yeah, just leave them there.
Yeah. Even with that, it is climbed by thousands every year. That do it, and so the kill rate, that leaves that trail of bodies is only 3%. So statistically speaking, 3 out of every 100 climbers will die while climbing it. Statistically speaking, it doesn't mean that's what will happen. Imagine more people died in the old days, and you still have to round those up. People are surviving more nowadays, but statistically
it's more of a tourist
speaking,
thing now. Yeah,
3 out of 100. The odds aren't horrible, but I sure as fuck ain't climbing it. What I found interesting though is a mountain called Annapurna. Now, this is what I was going to make the episode about, was Annapurna. It is the 10th highest peak in the world, but it's 9 times deadlier than Everest.
Wow, harder to climb, I'm assuming.
27% of the climbers die while attempting to climb this mountain. Statistically speaking, if you climb this mountain with 3 of your friends, 1 of you ain't coming back.
Wow.
This stat is one that Jason is already well aware of. My wife came across an article about this study and asked me to send it to Jason. Yeah, it was really fortunate that she found it while I was working on this episode. It was just kind of a neat little coincidence, which really was. I was like, what the hell? For the past 10 years, including this year, Orkin has declared Chicago as the rattiest city in the United States. Jason was very relieved to see that Dallas was number 22 on that list.
It's the reason why we live here.
Yeah. Now, I wonder if Dallas being so low is because how forested we are. Dallas has the largest urban forest in the United States. We have 6,000 acres of forest.
They have places to go, is what you're saying? There's apartments.
It means that there are places for our rats to live outside of city streets, as well as a place for their predators. We have loads of snakes and hawks.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine that Chicago has a lot of natural predators for rats the way we do. So it's time for statistics guy rant.
All right, let's hear it.
I love numbers and data. I like to learn, and I like making my decisions based on accurate information. The key word is accurate. You have to be cautious with the statistics that get quoted at you in various articles, news stories, and social media. If the election didn't teach a lot of you that, I wish you would learn, because everybody's like, oh, no, but the polls said, yeah, you can't trust all these things.
Yeah, do your own research.
There's various ways that data like this can be used to manipulate and misrepresent the actual facts. For instance, the rattiest city statistic is based on the number of treatments that Orkin does in various cities. The study and story is an advertisement for Orkin. So I don't even think it's a very good advertisement for them either. Why is the same city the worst every year? Is it because, even though they do the most rat treatments out of every other city, it's not decreasing them? Is it because Chicago is so gross that despite numerous Orkin rat treatments, they are still infested? No, I just saying that, that's where they do the most. So if anything, if I was the Orkin people and I was marketing, I'd be like, Chicago is the least likely place to encounter a rat because they use us more than everybody else. And then that could be an advertisement instead of, sitting there saying, throwing Chicago under the bus, being like, oh, yep, full of rats.
And this is where they call us to the most, and yet that's where most of the rats are.
Yeah. All right. Well, either way, I looked up the who, the why, and the how on this study, and I figured out it's not very accurate because none of this was about actually tracking rat populations. None of it. It was just based off of the number of treatments Orkin does. So it's stupid. Now, not every question, not every study is questionable because of who's doing the study. Sometimes you just leave out information. And that's exactly what I did with Mount Annapurna when I was talking about it. It's jarring to think about something that'll kill 1 in 4 people. But I didn't mention that as of 2022, it's only been climbed by 365 people. There was a 20-year period where nobody climbed that mountain. It's also a very long climb. So if you go up and down that, you travel 81 miles.
Holy crap.
Yeah. Climbing any mountain in the Himalayas costs tens of thousands of dollars. And if the trip takes that long, it's going to make it way more expensive. So is Mount Annapurna dangerous? Yes. Is it because the mountain wears a hockey mask and demands a sacrifice out of each group of climbers? No. It's just attempted rarely and doesn't have well-established paths like Mount Everest does. Yeah. I know that most people know that about data and statistics and everything that I even went over. I'm pretty sure you could poke some holes in some assertions that I made from it. But I just want to reinforce that numbers are great, but make sure you get the whole picture. Don't sit there and just hear a stat and say, oh, that must be true, because more than likely somebody's fucking with it one way or the other.